Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So uh, the education about racial and social justice issues comes on behalf of Willie Bryan, starting at Lansing First Presbyterian Church. And, really, education is at the core of uh, what we've been doing over the
Mm,
past 3, 4 years now. And so, um, in experiencing the racial disparities as related to health outcomes during the pandemic, in addition to the murder of George Floyd, our congregation asks, what can we do to be a part of a solution? And it was Willie's idea to come up with a more structural solution, and that being reparations. And so, through educating the congregation and having a pastor that was on board, we began educating houses of worship, predominantly white houses of worship, about the legacy of slavery, its aftermath, and the impediments to wealth accumulation. And so, uh, what started in the house of worship has now parlayed itself into doing presentations for community organizations and colleges and universities and seminaries, uh, corporate corporations as well. We find ourselves in many libraries educating the community about the legacy of slavery and what we can do about it as a community. Um, so that's kind of the heart of how things began. And over the past 2 to 3 years, we've just been very uh, consistent with the messaging, and the response from the community has been overwhelming.
mm,
Um,
mm,
just in terms of the support and us seeing this as being a practical solution to amending historical wrongdoings. So the Justice League is focused primarily on three core areas of closing the racial wealth gap, and that's education, housing, as well as business entrepreneurship. And these are some things that we get more into depth if we ever had the opportunity to present to, more members of Pittsburgh. We can get more into the depth of what we
yeah,
talk about to the
yeah.
community. But at the core, we're focusing on housing, education, and business. And so last year was the first year where we allocated reparations to 10 descendants of enslaved African Americans living in the greater Lansing region. Uh, we are in the final stages of just building a house for an African American senior. So, our part of our goal is to increase home ownership. So, we've identified community partners within our community that align with what we're going after. So, we've just developed a new home. And this year, we're also getting into the business arm. Um, so that's more of the outcome of what we've been doing. But I think at the heart, the message is that many houses of worship, right, have benefited directly and indirectly from the legacy of slavery
Yeah.
and its aftermath due to complicity. And that's well documented, not just houses of worship, but colleges and universities, some insurance companies. And so it was Willie's idea to not just focus on reparations, but to design a faith-based model for reparations, right? So when we look nationally, we see there's different models for reparations.
Mhm.
California has its own model. Uh, Evanston, Illinois has its own model, but Willie's design was a faith-based reparations model. So it's really enabled houses of worship and communities in this region to live into a structural solution for helping to repair the breach of wealth inequities. So I'll stop there, and if Willie wants to add more to that, please do so, Willie.
Well, that was really good summary. The Just to emphasize that our approach was to talk to churches. I mean, I always think that churches are, this is their wheelhouse. Uh, uh,
Mm.
the sin, the sin of racism, the complicity in slavery and profiting from slavery, um, had been centered with uh, predominantly white churches in this country, and we know that history. And so to go to churches, you know, seemed like a great a logical step, because the the churches can now live into their stated goals of um, removing and repairing the breach that was caused by slavery and its aftermath. Because it was important to talk about the fact that this is not something that happened 400 years ago, and there are no repercussions. So
Mhm.
it's very important to talk about what has happened as a result, and where are we in terms of social justice uh, in our current status. And so that became the bedrock for us talking about how we can repair the damage that's been done. How can we attempt it, try it, work on it? And so the Justice League then was born out of that effort to want to have, as I like to quote Dr. Martin Luther King on that, having the beloved community.
Yes.
And
Mm.
so to do that, we have to have a system where everyone can share in the resources that everyone has uh, been a part of building. And so that message to the churches, and I think that would be across the board, but certainly in our area, that's what we experienced, is that that message was well received, because many of the churches that came on board with us were looking for ways to repair this damage and looking for
Mm.
ways to interact with um, the African American community and um, see what could be accomplished
Mm.
when folk work together to alleviate the damage that's been done. So that was the basis of how we came together, building relationships. We started this organization, got it moving, but one of the important elements was building relationships with the predominantly white churches, so that we had an organization that could work together, you know, and that's pretty key, because it's difficult to have like a predominantly or an all white group develop a plan, get it all in place, and then come to the Black community and say, "Here you go, we fixed it for you."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, understanding that it has to be a dual effort, it has to be folk working together.
Mm.
We say from the beginning, we did not want to experience and have folk experience guilt about uh, how we got here. Don't want the African American community, because you have a similar, an opposite effect in the African American community. Many folks would say we don't need help. We can get there by ourselves, and
Mm.
so it could become a standoff. And we wanted to eliminate and bring these groups together so that we could have that meaningful conversation, having that meaningful step forward and work together. So that's been our goal in this project, is to build these relationships, so that what essentially what we said initially was to churches, is that many of the churches are rich, huge
Mm. Mm.
endowments,
Mhm.
and the opposite is true for the descendants of enslaved Africans. The communities, home ownership is a real situation that doesn't exist in the same manner that it exists in the white community. and the list goes on. Businesses being able to get loans, to be able to start businesses, and so forth. And so certainly empowering our youth and others who want to do, you know, higher education. And so we wanted that to be a coming together of groups, not one group uh, uh, in a charitable manner,
Yes.
you know,
Right.
dispensing resources to another group. So that's what one of the things that I'm really proud of is how we have done that, how we have come together as community.
Mm.
And we're seeing in our community how folk want that. It's just many times you just don't know how to get there. So we've been really excited about the fact that we're building this model where we can say to individuals who are interested in the same thing we're interested in is that, hey, this can be done in tandem, in cooperation with each other. And that's one of the, because you can kind of work out a lot of things once you get the framework of how you're going to operate. And so that's one of our exciting pieces is that that is being heard.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about the how you did build those relationships, kind of coalitions, because we've definitely been having that kind of conversation around how do we build the relationship between the white church and the black church and the presbytery, and we have black pastors on our team as well. So it's a team of white and black members of Pittsburgh Presbytery, but are there certain, or what was your framework for helping to begin to develop that relationship? And I also noticed, I mean, you have a robust ecumenical um, relationship. Did you start in the presbytery and that grew out, or did you just start right away with reaching out to all sorts of folks?
Well, what we did initially was establish a framework that we would work around and build this framework that could sustain an organization. So we did our homework first in terms of um, building the organizational structure. So for the Justice League, so that when we went to and what we did was gave sort of an invitation to the community. By community, I mean, you know, in Lansing, we reached out to Lansing area. We reached out to houses of worship, predominantly white houses of worship. The other thing that we did, and we were very careful to do, was that we established, and we can share with you at some point down the road, we could talk about how we could share, exactly our system, our framework. And we knew it was important to have these groups come together as one group. So we wanted to build, part of the plan was to build an advisory council to the organization. And that advisory council, we determined, should be African American, all African American, because what we want to do is affect the change and establish reparations for the African American community. So we wanted to have individuals representing the community to advise the Justice League on, what are the needs, what are we, where do we want to go with this, and who are the structural partners we want to establish. So we were very careful to do that. And one of the reasons this is so important is because of that piece where African Americans are very very cognizant of the relationship so that the pride and the wholeness of the community be respected. And so that we then, we established this, we have about, I think, 9-10 member board that's all African American that decides on projects and, within our framework and make recommendations, find the right sources to go to and that kind of thing. And so that's been a really strong part of our build, is that we have a board that manages the organization that is multiracial. And so these two groups can come together, rely on each other. And so once we got that established, the goal, we gave a bit of, I just call it an invitation to white churches to be a part of this project, to say, okay, you represent a group that has generational wealth. You represent, or you are descendants of a group that was complicit in slavery and profited from slavery. So how can we then, manage a program that allows transference, allows payments of folk who have been harmed, in this process. So that, I give the churches a lot of credit in terms of wanting to hear the message. We were invited into places, we went to groups and we said, we'd like to come in and talk to you about this. We started there in First Press, talking to the session. And that's where we got our chops, essentially. We must have, I started out presenting, and every opportunity I'd find, an adult education class or, a forum, or the session, wherever we could go to give this message, because it was new. I mean, not the history, isn't new, but it was new for this group to hear and learn that they could do something, that they could actually not go, oh, it's terrible, and go home and close the door and say,
yeah,
what can we do about it? So when we start to actually show what we could do about it, I think that was important, and an important turn of events is that now individuals say, oh, so we can do something about it. And, we approached it from that standpoint of saying, there are, and we can show you, it'd be great to show you our demonstration, our presentations, because we built the framework and we show how you can actually do it. And so that becomes a catalyst, when when people can hear how they can actually build a program, or how you can actually impact a situation in your community that is wrong, but you just don't know what to do about it. Reparations itself, just even the term, it's scary for folks, So to demystify reparations was one of our first goals, to normalize the word, normalize it, and talk about it, and go to different groups. So that became our framework, was to go to churches, give our presentation, educate the group, and inspire folk to, now it's your turn. You take this to your sessions, you take this to your social justice groups, and we need to come back, we will, and talk about how this project can work for you and for this community. the churches, we're very fortunate that the churches in this area and other areas, we hearing the same conversations from many other areas, are, ready to hear it and want to do something. It's just, one of those situations where it's like, what can we do about this?
Mm.
And then you get a logical explanation of what you can do, and it's like, all right, let's do it. So that's where we landed. We landed in that place where folk were saying, what can we do with it? All right, here's the plan. And it was then, okay, let's do that. And of course, we've been fortunate. Prince is quite the dynamic leader. He serves as the president. And so to have these ideas move forward, to go into the community and say, I tell you what, let's meet, over at the university, and let's talk about what can happen. And so it's been fruitful in that way. It would be great for you all to have your committee, and it would really be good if you, like your committee, and if you could establish others who would want to hear this message and have us do a presentation to you.
Mm.
So it comes together very quickly once we can do a presentation to you, because the presentation has been designed so that it answers questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and boom, you
Mhm.
understand, you're on board in terms of how you can replicate something like that, or how you can participate with one that's already established. So it'd be difficult for us to go to every community. So when communities want to replicate this model, it becomes a, you know a good deal for people to be able to understand it well, come in, participate, rely on us if that's something you'd like to do, because we have a lot of questions. We have even developed a program where folk can come in and use our materials. So we could, we could talk about that as
Yeah,
a
yeah,
possibility.
that's yeah. I think we'd be interested for sure in having you come do a presentation. Would love to, yeah, hear more about that. And because we're definitely been talking about how do we get people to that concrete
Yeah,
action space,
right.
like not
Yeah,
just like,
and we do these presentations by Zoom to
mhm,
groups.
mhm,
Like you get your group, add
yeah,
whoever would be. It would be great for them to be a part of the situation. People who can move and establish a project like this, and so during the presentation, it will generate more questions from you, but it gives you a concrete a plan, so that you can say,
yeah, yeah,
so we know how we can identify, this committee, we can identify that needs to be done in the community.
Yeah. I think one of the other um, things I pay attention to as part of leadership is not only have we seen this cross-denominational support to the Justice League, but there's also this cross-racial support, as well as this intergenerational support as well. And so it really takes on this full essence of community and giving people the opportunity to be a part of a structural solution. So again, just the momentum that's developed over these past handful of years, it's come from both the church and the community. It's come from a handful of different denominations, people from different walks of life, and of course, that intergenerational approach where it's you understand that it's the elders that might have uh, the voice and the keys to open doors, but it's also the younger generation that wants to be involved, that wants to support. So to see that type of um, layering it's very moving.
Mm-hmm. And how has it worked for you all to like get that kind of momentum? Like, Prince, are you out in a lot of communities like giving the presentation? Is there a team of you that shares the presentation? Just wondering how you build those spaces.
Honestly, I think that this project is very dear to me, right? For a number of reasons. My grandparents and my great grandparents being a part of the history in which we're talking about,
Mm.
to be able to talk openly and vulnerably about the history that many of us may never have had or has been brushed under the rug in our history classes, or we don't learn about it until we're in like our second or third year of college. So to be able to talk about this uh, and and put it into context and see how it's relevant to not just Willie's life or my mother's life, but my life. So it's reality for me, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is we've been very genuine about bringing community along, meaning anytime we've had the opportunity to do a presentation, no matter how small or big the group, we commit to doing it, but also creating different opportunities in spaces that I love. So I love the library. So, for example, we held an event at the local library here last year, which turned into other opportunities. But at that event, we called it How Did We Get Here?
Mm.
Right? And we were able to kind of demystify for the community the work, the progress, the development, the work of the church, the work of the community as to how we got to this point and being proactive about reparations. So education and knowing this community has made me very genuine about this project. So it's about cultivating relationships. Again, Willie has been a very active elder within PCUSA from serving on the 225th, why is the name, uh, General
General
Assembly.
House
Assembly.
Commissioner.
Yeah, serving on the 225th General Assembly, where they were able to, I believe, accept and vote in the apology to be um,
Mm-hmm.
given across PCUSA for the legacy of slavery. It's referred to as the Litany of Repentance. We took that apology and we put legs on it in this community. And we held the apology at an African American church on the south side of Lansing. That brought together uh, 12 to 13 houses of worship from different denominations, both black and white, to give the apology and to receive the apology in an organic way. And we've done that twice over now. So it's just understanding that this idea of community is something that has to be acted upon, right? It's like being a part of community means being action oriented, being involved. And so, um, my experience in community development and what I bring to the league helps to build those types of relationships.
And that was a powerful video. Like, I watched the apology video that's on your website. And that's something we've been wondering aloud as one of our possible action steps, the need to repent and apologize for, the things that the racial injustice that's happened within our presbytery, as well as within our country. Gosh, I got so many things floating through my head. Carol, Peter, you got anything you want to put in there or ask right at this moment?
I don't know. Sure.
How did you begin to demystify just the word reparations? Because I realize you say it and it's the tsunami. It's scary.
Yeah, that's early on was my goal to demystify. When I started, the catalyst for me, happened in well, I've always worked toward this goal. I mean, I've always worked in this arena, community activism, just whatever was needed to try and balance the scales. Uh, um, but one of the early on and important initiatives was to do that. Carol, was to talk to groups about why reparations were needed, and that's it. So the word reparations takes second seat to understanding why
Mm.
reparations are needed. So you can explain it, but to give the information of why, because people don't think about it much. We live our everyday lives, and pretty much in small sectors, so we don't always look at the big picture and how everyone should be able to enjoy the resources of that have been developed by everyone. So what we experience in this country, uh, and around the world, but what we're talking about is here in this country, is that we see resources, we enjoy the resources, but we don't tend to look around us and see if everyone's enjoying those same resources. And so the goal for me early on was to give that information, to talk to folk about the core factors of why we are not all enjoying the same resources. And so not everybody understands, because you just, you wake up in the morning, you move, and you go to work, and you come back, and it hadn't occurred to you what my neighbors who are in need are experiencing. And so to give that message was key for me, was to have folk understand the big picture. And so once we do that, then it demystifies the word, and it allows us to understand that we're not we're not evil if I have more than someone else. It's not, I'm not evil, but I can do something about that. And so that,
Mm.
Carol, that's at the heart of just following Christian principles, but that we don't think about either. That we're not doing that. So just to make folk aware that you're in a great position to be able to change the world. You're in a great position to change your surroundings. And if you participate, this is what we can do. And so we're enjoying having folk come in, folk call us up, to say, I want to help. I want to do something about the inequities that I see. And so that's at the heart of it. I'm really anxious to have you guys gather a group and invite us in to do a presentation, because it answers all the questions for
Yeah.
the for folk who want to make a difference, and it allows you to then be able to facilitate a structure that will allow you to do that in your communities.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Mm. I'm going to ask a practical question. Where are y'all getting the money? Uh, that's helping to fund like the scholarships, and are the churches like just
Mm.
donating and giving as part of their action?
Yes, that's where the money. That's where the money is coming from in terms of reparations.
Yeah.
The churches have said, yes, we want to pay reparations. And so they're doing that. We give you that information in our presentation as well. Um, the other part of that question, though, Jeff, is that we need money. So where is it coming from in terms of the projects that we can facilitate? It's really coming from reparations being paid through our major payers are the churches. Yeah, we get it from several different sources that, again, we can share with you. But when I say we need money, administratively, so we are in the process of, trying to build a pathway toward uh, being able to receive, grant funds or that can give us administrative funds, because the the 90% right now of the funds that we bring in go directly to uh, repairing the breach. So we could talk about financial structure and all that at some point. Um, but we are struggling with building administrative support. We're all volunteers. This is an all volunteer group, but to be sustainable, we have to um, have some administrative support. Just because logically you have to exist, and you have to pay the phone bill, and you have to um, pay the transportation and the printing, and you go on and name it.
Sure.
So we are, as I say, 90% goes directly to reparation, and that's the way we want the funds that are coming in. We also want a separate stream that can come in to do our administrative needs. So we're not at our ideal spot. Our ideal spot would be that we would not have to be concerned about administrative costs. If we would, so we're in the business of writing grants, applications. We are encourage administrative pay, administrative donors that just say earmark funds for administration, because I mean, as dynamic as Prince is, and as committed as I am, we still have to keep the lights on in some way.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Yeah. So if we gather you all to give a presentation, how long is the presentation? How much time do you need?
Yeah, we'd love to have an hour, and we've done it in less. We don't like doing it in less,
Give you at least
just
an hour.
because the message is so powerful that
Yeah,
we can have an hour and a half. We could do that, but we try not to go too far beyond an hour, just because folks
sure.
don't want to sit too much longer than
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I, I,
So we do a Q&A afterwards, which is very helpful.
yeah, yeah. I find 75 minutes is kind of like a sweet spot. Like, it's like gives you that little bit of extra buffer time, but it doesn't
Yeah.
sound an hour and a half sounds long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there are other questions, thoughts I have, but probably would be answered in your presentation, and it would be benefit for more of us to hear it. So and we're kind of coming up to an hour right now. But
Yeah.
any other just brief words or thoughts of encouragement for us, things we might want to be. I love your emphasis on the education piece and housing, and what was the third one, and the business entrepreneurial things. Those are all things that have come up in some of our discussions. But yeah, just any thoughts or wisdom you all can offer us as we're in this kind of space of listening and trying to create recommendations.
You know what's very important? I always like to say this to groups, is especially groups that are all white, that we interact with. If we interact with an all white group, I really want to say how important this is, to have relationships with the African American community. And not only the community, but have on your group, on your boards, or your in your organization,
Yeah.
uh, uh, African Americans who can walk. You can walk beside. You can walk alongside, because getting part of this project that is really important is to have the relationships so that you have an alignment with all factions, so that
Yeah.
you don't develop a program and then present it to the Black community and say, look what we got for you.
Mhm.
So it's very important to do that, to be identifying, because I've been really
Our committee is not all white, even
impressed.
though Carol, Peter, and I are here. We do have
Pardon?
Black members on our committee on the Alliance,
All
so
right, yeah, that's good. And
including
to have that work in tandem, because I
absolutely.
think that I've been impressed with um, groups that are all white who want to do this work. Not in any condescending way. I mean, I've been impressed with folk who really want to do the work. However, because when we talk about how the word reparations scares folk, um, from the position of the Black community and all white groups scares folks. You see, so that
Sure.
um, just as the word reparations is like, folks, wait a minute, what do you mean? How do you want me to take my money and give it to you, or you? So that becomes a misunderstanding. The same thing is true with because of the history, because of the history of this
Yeah.
country and the relationships. It is so important to have this dual role, this walking in tandem, rather than having the leadership be all white and then make recommendations.
Yeah.
So that I would caution, and we've been doing that. We've been cautioning groups heavily because it creates problems. We working with a group where we see that some of those problems could creep in real easy, um, because the history of the and that's what we'd like to talk more about in our presentation. But the history of racism in this country, the history of segregation, the history of just non-equal treatment. So that's ingrained in folks, and that's ingrained in your knowledge, your information, and just innately, it's ingrained. So that white privilege is a real element, and um, it sidelines projects so often. Not with the white group being well-meaning, but not understanding that represents in itself, if it's all white, it represents white privilege, and so that for the African American community can just turn off from that, because that's why we have separate churches, right? We have separate churches because of segregation, because of racism. And so if you've been relegated and you have grown strong and you're resilient and you work, so the message is, well, I don't need to listen to an all white group. I have an all Black group here that I'm very comfortable with, and we're happy and blah, blah, blah. So to make sure that you have a project that can work, I caution um, groups to be sure that you're carrying along the message that this is a group. I mean, this is an organization that includes both factions in equal representation and in equal, you know, power dynamics. So, all of that gets in there, and so it's important to remember that.
You've just summarized a lot of what we've found out in our investigation so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of efforts in Pittsburgh Presbytery have been along those lines in the past. The
Yep.
white group of folks coming and saying, here's an answer, or
Yes.
here's some funds that we, the white people, will control and distribute to the Black church. And that has not worked out well.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a and that and the reason that's so important. See, you're recognizing that now, and one of the reasons it's so important is because you can recognize that together. as opposed to recognizing it separately.
Mhm.
If you recognize that, the Black community already knows and it's already in defense mode.
Yeah.
The white community is trying to figure out, well, why you won't take this? We worked this out, and here's the chart, and this has worked well for us. About so to have those move together speaks towards success.
Yeah. Thank you, Willie. Prince, you got any last thoughts for us?
Sure. Just thank you for the work that you have been doing, Jeff, with the Alliance for Honor and Repair. I think that's notable. And one thing I like to keep in mind is just that um, it's one step at a time. One step at a time. There's always going to be a lot of ideas. There'll be a lot of questions, but uh, I always keep in mind what Willie shared early on, which was just keep your eyes on the prize. And so, in the midst of ups and downs, um, we keep our eyes on the prize and we keep moving slowly but surely. Never have we tried to persuade an entire ecclesial body, uh, but if we go in and we uh, share the message and it reaches 1 to 2 people, then we've done our job. So slowly but surely.
Yeah. Thanks, Prince. Yeah. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. Yeah. It can feel a little overwhelming in moments, or like
Yeah.
we want to get there. Or and I
Right.
always hold on to something Jermaine said and says, which is something along the lines of as soon as possible, but for as long as it takes. And like
Yeah.
it's going to take a while, but
Yeah.
that one step at a time is the hopeful piece. And I really appreciate this time because it feels like just another step to be connecting with folks that are doing this work so well, so we can learn from you all. So thanks very much. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you indeed.
Great. Great. We look forward to continued relationship, and we look forward to certainly uh, doing a presentation to your group. That's really works so well. That's how we like to start,
Yeah,
and then we can do the tentacles out from
wonderful.
there.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch with y'all soon. So,
All right, great.
all
Yeah.
right.
One last thing is
Yeah.
if anybody here is interested in attending one of our general team meetings, that's held on the second Tuesday of every month. So
Okay.
the next meeting will be on May 13th, and it's just for 1 hour from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. But what that will allow for those who are curious is to kind of get an understanding of the inner workings of the Justice League, to
Yeah.
understand the structure, the different subcommittees, the work that we're doing at the local level as it relates to reparations and just the people. So
Yeah.
if you're interested in attending, please let me know, and I can add you to our email distribution. Um, just let me know.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I think that would be great. Is that Central Time? The 3 o'clock? Or you for
Eastern.
Eastern? You're
Eastern time.
at Lansing's Eastern. Okay.
Yep, Eastern. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and put and I know, Jeff, you said that you've been browsing the website over the past couple of days, but for those who haven't got an opportunity, this is the website. This is where we try to keep the public up to date with what we've been up to, where we're going next, how people can get involved. So on that homepage, if you want to subscribe to the email distribution, you would receive an invitation to our next monthly team meeting, and then you would also receive like a monthly e-newsletter that lets you know what we've been up to in the area.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll send that along to the rest of our team. I think I've sent it out before, but just to send it out to them again with that invitation as
Yeah.
well.
Thanks for reaching out, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Prince. Thank you, Willie. Really appreciate it. Hope you all have a blessed rest of your day, and we'll be in touch soon.
All right,
Peter,
great.
nice meeting you, Miss Raw. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right.
Thanks.